Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This
Mm.
time, we're going to be looking at a story from the Bible,
Okay.
specifically from 2 Samuel chapter 9, and it's a story about loyalty,
Right.
compassion, and second chances.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got King David, his deceased friend Jonathan, and Jonathan's son, Mephibosheth.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating look at David.
Uh,
After consolidating his power,
yeah,
he makes a decision that I think is very revealing about his character.
definitely. So, just to set the stage for people who might not be super familiar with the story,
Right.
the story kind of kicks off with David remembering a covenant he made with Jonathan.
Uh-huh.
And this covenant was basically to show kindness to any surviving members of his family.
Okay.
So this leads him to Mephibosheth,
Mm-hmm.
who was living in Lodabar.
Lodabar literally means no pasture.
Oh.
So kind of a place for outcasts,
That's
really highlighting Mephibosheth's fall from grace,
Yeah. And he's also lame in both feet.
Yeah, and as the grandson of Saul, who was David's predecessor and rival,
Yeah,
you would expect, maybe some tension there.
totally. You would think that David might see him as like a potential threat to his throne,
Right.
but instead of suspicion, David does something really unexpected.
Totally. He really goes above and beyond.
Yeah.
Not only does he bring Mephibosheth to Jerusalem,
Right.
but he restores to him all the land that belonged to Saul.
Wow.
And then it doesn't even stop there.
Right.
He invites Mephibosheth to eat at his table,
Yeah.
continually treating him like one of his own sons.
That is incredible. I mean, that's not just about land or wealth.
Right.
That's about inclusion,
Yeah. Absolutely.
belonging,
Mm-hmm.
really kind of subverted expectations here.
It really goes beyond just, duty or political strategy. I think
Yeah.
this shows David's deep sense of loyalty, his compassion, and his willingness to extend forgiveness and generosity.
Right.
Someone who really could have been seen as an enemy.
Totally. And I think that's what's so powerful about this story. It's like, imagine being Mephibosheth, going from this place of fear and isolation to this remarkable act of grace.
Right.
It makes you wonder what motivated David to go so far.
That's where it gets really interesting because
Yeah.
while, honoring his covenant with Jonathan is a key factor,
Right.
some scholars actually interpret David's actions as a savvy political move to kind of solidify his reign
Okay.
by appearing merciful and, squashing any potential rebellion.
Wow. So it's like there's this whole other layer to the story that's
Yeah.
really
It
fascinating.
makes you think about the complexities of leadership and the motivations behind these grand gestures.
Totally.
But, regardless of the political implications, I think
Yeah.
David's act still speaks volumes about the power of compassion.
Absolutely. And I think that's why these stories resonated for centuries, because it
Mm.
taps into something so fundamental about the human experience.
Yeah.
We
Right.
all crave connection and belonging. And David's gesture, I think, speaks to that deep longing in all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And it really makes you think about the ripple effects of kindness,
Totally.
like how one act can change a life.
Exactly. Think about the impact on Mephibosheth.
Yeah.
He went from feeling like an outcast to having a place at the king's table.
Right.
It's a powerful illustration of second chances and restoration.
Yeah. And it also challenges us to think about how we treat others,
Right.
especially those who are different from us or who might be seen as outsiders.
Yeah, it's so easy to fall into that trap of judging people
Right.
based on their past or their circumstances.
Yeah.
But David's story reminds us to look beyond the surface and see the inherent worth in every individual.
So how can we apply this ancient story to our modern lives?
Yeah, that's a great question.
We might not be kings and princes,
Right.
but we all have relationships
Mm-hmm.
where loyalty, compassion, and forgiveness come into play.
It's about those everyday acts of kindness, the willingness to listen without judgment, to offer support,
Right.
to extend grace when it's least expected. It's about choosing to see the good in others,
Yeah.
even when they might not see it in themselves.
It's like that saying, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about.
Right.
Be kind,
Mm.
always.
That's so true. And sometimes
100%.
just being present for someone,
Yeah.
offering a listening ear,
Mm.
can be the greatest gift we can give.
Totally. And it's about putting ourselves in someone else's shoes
Yeah.
and trying to understand their
Yeah.
perspective,
Mm-hmm.
even if we don't agree with them.
And recognizing that forgiveness, while incredibly difficult at times, can be incredibly liberating.
Right.
It frees us from the burden of anger and resentment.
It's not about condoning hurtful actions,
Right.
but rather about choosing to release ourselves
Yeah.
from the pain of the past.
And sometimes extending that forgiveness to ourselves
Yeah,
can be the hardest but most important act of all.
that's a really profound point. It's so easy to be hard on ourselves
Right.
and dwell on past mistakes.
But just as David offered Mephibosheth a chance to start anew,
Yeah.
we can offer ourselves that same grace.
So if we look back at the story of David and Mephibosheth,
Okay.
what are some practical ways we can apply these principles in our own lives?
Well, I think it starts with awareness,
Okay.
paying attention to the people around us, their needs, their struggles.
Mhm.
It's about asking ourselves, who in my life might need a gesture of unexpected grace? Who deserves a second chance?
Right. Could be a family member, a friend, a coworker, even a stranger.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about opening our hearts and minds to the possibilities.
And remembering that kindness doesn't always have to be these grand gestures.
Right.
Sometimes it's the simple things.
Yeah.
A phone call to a lonely friend, a helping hand with groceries,
Mhm.
a sincere compliment.
It's about those seemingly small acts that can have a ripple effect,
Exactly.
brightening someone's day and maybe even inspiring them to pay it forward.
And sometimes the most unexpected acts of kindness can have the most profound impact.
Just like David's decision to welcome Mephibosheth to his table,
Right.
we can choose to create spaces of belonging and inclusion in our own lives.
And in doing so, we not only transform the lives of others,
Yeah,
but we also transform ourselves.
this has been such a rich conversation.
Yeah, it
And I
has.
feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
There's always more to explore.
Yeah.
And I encourage our listeners to reflect on this story
Hmm.
and consider how they can embody these timeless principles of compassion and grace.
Yeah, it really is amazing to think about how this story from, thousands of years ago
Right.
still holds so much relevance for us today.
Absolutely.
The world might have changed, but the human need for connection,
Mm-hmm.
compassion, and second chances, that remains constant.
I think as we navigate the complexities of modern life,
Yeah,
it's even more crucial to hold on to these timeless values.
right, because it's like we're bombarded with so much information and stimulation these days
Yeah. Right.
that it can be easy to lose sight of the human element.
Absolutely. We're always rushing from one thing to the
Right.
next, rarely taking the time to truly connect with the people around us.
So where do we start? Like, how do we actually integrate these principles of kindness and generosity
Mhm.
into our, busy, often overwhelming lives?
I think it starts with small, conscious choices.
Okay.
Maybe it's choosing to smile at a stranger,
Right.
offering a genuine compliment,
Right.
or taking the time to listen to a friend who's having a tough day.
Yeah, those little moments of human connection, that
Exactly.
can make such a big difference.
And as we make those choices,
Yeah,
they become habits.
right.
And we start to see the world through a different lens,
Hmm.
one that's focused on empathy and understanding.
It's like we're training our minds
Yeah.
to look for opportunities to be kind, to offer support,
Absolutely.
to extend grace.
And the more we do it, the more natural it becomes.
Hmm.
It's like building a muscle.
I love that analogy. And just like working out a muscle can be challenging at first.
Right.
So too can practicing compassion.
Yeah.
There will be times when we fall short,
Of course.
when we get caught up in our own stuff and forget to extend ourselves to others.
That's okay. We're all human.
Right.
The important thing is to keep trying to keep showing up for ourselves and for others.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And as we continue on this journey of cultivating compassion,
Yeah.
we'll find that it not only transforms the lives of those around us,
Right.
but it also profoundly changes our own lives.
Mm-hmm.
We become more patient, more understanding, more connected to the world around us.
It's like we're tapping into a deeper well of humanity within ourselves.
And that's a truly beautiful thing.
This deep dive into the story of David and Mephibosheth has been so insightful.
It has.
It's a powerful reminder that even in a world that can often feel dark and divided, there's always room for kindness, compassion, and second chances.
And that each of us has the power to make a difference. Yeah.
Starting with those small, intentional acts of grace
Right.
that ripple outwards, creating a more beautiful and connected world.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this journey of exploration.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And until next time, keep diving deep and keep choosing kindness.